The Libertarian Party of Minnesota. We are going to talk this evening, and Charlie, I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name, because there's like two different versions in my head, and I always pick the wrong one, but I can never remember which wrong one I pick. So
that's all right. It's Kuchlenz.
Right. So we have Charley Kuchlenz with us on this evening, and then Kevin Bradley, who is our comms director for the party. And this evening, we're going to talk about Charley petitioning campaign. He's running for House Representative.
Correct. Yeah. So Minnesota representative in District 52B, which is down here in Eagan, Mendota Heights.
Yeah. So that's new news for our party and really exciting. But first, I have some announcements to make about upcoming affiliate meetings. So on September 23rd, the Libertarian Women of Dakota and Goodhue counties are going to have a discussion about homeschooling and microschooling at Spiral Brewery. CD3's meetup is at Omni Brewery. And if you want to go and find out actually where all the towns and times and all that places these are happening, it's lpmn.org is where you can find the rest of the information. October 1st, there's a virtual meet and greet that's open to the public via Zoom, just so if you're interested in like finding out more information about the party, have some questions, that kind of stuff, that Zoom link is on the website also. And then, actually, that's it. That's it for announcements. So anyways, before we go any further, like I said, we're going to talk to Charley, and some things have started happening very quickly for the Libertarian Party of Minnesota. And Charley's pretty much at the forefront of it. So how's it going?
Yeah, it's this past week has been quite a whirlwind for me. I had originally taken this week off from work just because I've been working like crazy, and it lined up at the right time, and it hasn't settled down. So I don't feel like I'm getting rest, but what's that?
Yeah. Murphy's Law.
Yeah, exactly.
Took time off. That's exactly what everything to align in the universe need to happen. So
right. So on I believe September 1st, or is it the Friday right before Labor Day? My representative, my House representative Ruth Richardson resigned her seat, and we were waiting, a couple people had messaged me and said, "Hey, Ruth Richardson resigned. Did you see this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I saw her Twitter post, and then I saw Steve Simon post something, the Secretary of State. And then I started seeing candidates start to talk about maybe possibly running on Twitter and or X. I'm sorry. I'm going to refer to it as the correct name.
X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, formerly known as Twitter. And so, people reached out to me, and we were keeping an eye on, when this special election was going to happen. And sure enough, last Monday, Governor Walz issued a writ of special election for House District 52B. And set the timeline for September 13th through September 19th today. So today was the filing deadline. And if you've been around the party for a while, you know that in order to get a candidate into one of these races, we've got to collect 500 signatures, ballot or nominating petition signatures to get on the ballot. And so typically that's over a 15-day time period. Mm-hmm. But it's, in the spring, and it's over Memorial Day weekend and all that fun stuff. And, it's still just a pain in the butt to even collect those. But they decreased our time period down to 7 days. So it was, September 13th through September 19th. And so it was really kind of a quick decision on my part. Having been the chair of the party last year, and then everything we went through. I mean, Rebecca, you remember driving down and testifying in front of, Jim Carlson's elections committee about the raising of the majority party status. And I mean, Jim Carlson is one of my neighbors. So I was like, I've got to run. I just have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So started calling around and getting people involved. Chip Tanian was integral in kind of corralling people and getting people excited. Marianne jumped on the train. There was a ton of people that really kind of rallied around this race. Kara Schultz was influential in getting people involved. Pat Barnum was my rock through the past 5 days. She was coordinating everything to the point where she wouldn't tell me where we were at as far as signatures go, because she wanted me out just knocking doors. And so that's what I did. We had, I think, 24 total people from around the state show up from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just out collecting signatures. That Wednesday, so the first day, the opening day of the filing period, we went out to an Egan Market Fest, which is kind of just a little get together at our Central Park. And I had called earlier and I said, hey, we're going to be out there. I don't want to interrupt anything. Just can I set up a table at the entrance? And they said I couldn't. So step one is, how do we overcome this roadblock, right? And so I said, look, we're going to be out there anyway. Let's try and figure out a way that we can work around this. Be civil. I don't want to interrupt anything. And they said, well, we can't control what you do across the street, but there is a spot on the grass, on the sidewalk, and that's the main entrance. And I said, okay, great. They were very nice about it, came over and talked to us and said, yeah, this is a perfect spot. You guys can be here. We're not going to do anything. I said, great. That's all we wanted. We just wanted an opportunity to gather signatures. I think we got 65 signatures that night. So we hit the ground running. Eric Train was there every day. Chip Tanian was there every day. Marianne was all over the place every day. So it was fun to see and get people involved. The next 2 days, like Thursday and Friday, were kind of slow just because people are working. We went out from like 4 to 7 at night. But really when the weekend hit, we started seeing like tons of people come out and really canvassing the areas, separating the neighborhoods, kind of dividing them up into the precincts, and the numbers just started rolling in. By Sunday night, I basically canceled Monday's petition gathering because we had hit around 850 signatures, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I never would have imagined that. And it happened to be my birthday on Sunday night. So there was a lot of things going on. And when everybody left my house and, I went through, counted signatures, and I double counted them, triple counted them, had my son count them, open up an Excel spreadsheet and started tabbing the numbers and making sure I had all the math right. And it just kind of hit me. And I said, wow, this is insane. The level of response that we got from around the state and the party in general, just showing up to my district and knocking it out of the park. And this is the thing. This is what we can do.
Yeah.
Right? This is what we can do. When we mobilize and when we come together, we can really kick ass. And that's I want to keep that momentum going. So I told Kara going into this race, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. She asked me, what do you want to get out of this? What's your goal? And I, back at convention in April, my talk was really about this 20-year plan of developing communities and really getting people involved, and how do we limit the amount of government that is involved in our lives on a daily basis, and create that off ramp for people, because we know things are coming to a head, right? We know things are not going the right direction. And so it really was a matter of, my goal for this race was to get 20 good people in my district that are going to be really active. And if I can do that and get people involved in, like the 5 issues that I had talked about, we need to focus on 5 different issues per year. Start talking to people about how those affect their daily lives, get people involved in the party stance on things, and really start to develop leadership in our communities. And that correlates into, or translates into, leadership in government, right? So this was the perfect timing for me, and really a special election. We were able to focus just on this district and really just hit it hard. So I told Kara, first off, like, I want 20 good people to get involved in Senate District 52, really start to focus on that and how we can build this Senate district up, and then start to duplicate that across different Senate districts. So
Right.
hopefully becoming like a pilot, so to speak. I know we have a ton of other things going on, don't get me wrong, but I'm doing this is what I can do to help, move the party forward. And so it was a tremendous response to the call, and people freaking kicked ass, and we had such a good response from the public. People are so disaffected with the 2-party system that they were like, yes, we need somebody else to run. Up until yesterday, there wasn't a GOP candidate in the race, but we did have, after I filed, Cynthia Longquist, who has run twice in this district and lost to Ruth Richardson both times dramatically. So I don't know why she's running again.
Just to have a name on the ballot.
And see, that's the thing. We have a name on the ballot.
Yeah.
Right? So it is what it is. I'm not going to hold that. The Republican Party can do whatever the hell the Republican Party does. They're not going to win. My goal is to just show people that there is other options out there and that it can be done. So at this point, I'm looking at my packet and I'm saying, oh man, I've got to set up a campaign committee and the bank accounts and all that fun stuff, and start to get my platform together. There's already been buzz around social media. So some reporters are following this race. They've been kind of reporting out that this person filed. We've put up a couple press releases already. So I'm happy to see those getting some traction. I've got my Facebook page up. The website's up at Kuchlenz. My name's right there. Kuchlenz.
There it is. How do I? Oh, there.
KUCHLENZFORMN.com. So I'd love for people to engage, and when I get a donation page up, because I don't have my bank account set up yet, this is all just happening really, really quickly. Roadblock 1 was getting on the ballot, and we achieved that and I filed on Monday. We got the certificate from the Secretary of State this afternoon around 1:00. So I'm officially a candidate in the race and added to their website. So now it becomes setting up the bank account, adding donation pages, start figuring out a campaign team, and coming together with a plan over the next couple days. So, I mean, realistically, the DFL is going to, they've got 4 candidates that have filed. They're going to go into a primary in November. So it'll be them campaigning against each other until November. And it'll give me some time to kind of get out in front of the public at large and get my message out and just kind of show them that the things that we're facing now are government problems and they're not going to get solved by the government.
Right.
Right.
Do you
go ahead.
Do you expect, like, after the Democrats have their primary, and so then it comes down to, because right now they're going to focus all their energy on each other, right? But once that happens, are you anticipating the race to turn potentially ugly?
I think there's a plus and minus here. I don't think it'll turn ugly against me.
Okay.
You know, I think I
well,
think,
unless you're doing really good.
Well, and that's the weird thing about this is it's going to be 2.5 months. There's 2.5 months in this election cycle, in this special election. I don't know how much polling they're gonna do. I don't know what I don't know what kind of machine they have set up to really impart on this election. So maybe I'm an underdog and maybe they just don't know. They might just brush me aside and say, the Libertarians have a candidate and we're really worried about Cynthia Longquist, even though she lost 61-39 against Ruth Richardson.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's bad. But I think there's some bigger things going on around the state and around the U.S. in general that people are just so disaffected with what is happening and with the antics that are being carried out in state legislatures and even in Congress. I think people are just so frustrated with it that there might be an opportunity for us to gain some traction.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it optimistically with a Marianne will kill me if I say I'm not in it to win it. Because I am. I will beat every street in this district to get out in front of people. So I'm committed to it. But
So Charlie, you mentioned 5 issues. What are those 5 issues?
Yeah, so I think when we started looking at it, we have our core issues, right? Limited government, less taxes, but at the same and Second Amendment rights. But at the same time, there's a couple key issues that are coming up right now that people are really, really hinging on, and that's school choice and health freedom, right? So we have our core issues that we're really good on, and we're really good on the other 2 as well. So it's those issues that I really want to talk about, and it's the school choice and the health freedom that are going to resonate with people right now that are outside of our circle, right? So if you look on my my webpage right now, I believe I have something about fiscal responsibility because inflation is killing us. At a state level, I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to affect that, but at least I can affect the state budget as a representative. And then, limited government and then school choice. So those are the 3 key issues that I will work on. But at the same time, there's other issues that we can flag out with landing pages and do some marketing and get people engaged in different areas and kind of gauge their level of interest to say, is this an area we should focus on? Is this an area we should focus on? So that's kind of what I hear right now are the key issues. I've been asked, I mean, when I'm collecting signatures, a lot of people will say, well, what's your stance on abortion? I don't think that this legislative session is going to figure out the abortion issue. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's going to be figured out for the next 20 years. So my stance on the abortion issue is that public funding should not be going towards abortions. That's my stance, right? How do we get government funding out of the that issue?
Well, and the last legislative session, that was one of the first things that the Democrats changed, right? So abortion was like, I think it might have been the first thing they did.
Yeah.
And then just kind of changed all the laws to make them much more liberal in the state. So, there's, and inevitably, like, that kind of a question always comes up. So, you got to have people want to know, because people will vote for you solely based off of that question.
Right. Yeah. And people weren't willing to sign my petition solely based on that question. And I told them, realistically, my personal beliefs don't really matter. It comes down to what the legislation is, right? Where's the money coming from? If half of the country doesn't believe that we should have abortions and the other half says we can do it all the way up till birth, then we have a huge disparity. And that's a lot of people to come to a consensus on. So if we start looking at it from the aspect of, okay, if I'm perfectly willing to allow people to donate charitable contributions to the charity of their choice that might provide the services that they feel are necessary for women's health. But at the same time, I want to give people who disagree with those charities the opportunity to not have to pay taxes that are going to something they disagree with. So I'm not necessarily trying to play a middle road here, but I'm trying to play the fiscally responsible approach.
Makes sense.
So a question about your petitioning process. You said that people were willing to sign just based on that one issue. Were you very clear up front as part of your petitioning that you are a libertarian? And if
Absolutely.
so, what kind of response did you get from that alone?
It's a mixed bag. I think mostly people were receptive to it. They said, because my whole thing was, I'm not a major party candidate. That's why I've got to collect these signatures. I've got to have 500 signatures by Tuesday. And they said, well, what are your stances? And the first thing out of my mouth was always, I'm a libertarian. What that means is that I'm an advocate for private property, personal choice. I believe in less government, less taxes, so you can have more money to spend on things that matter to you. And so that was pretty much my pitch. I was upfront about it. There were a lot of people that were like, I'm not signing because, I'm a left Democrat. And I said, I respect that. I respect your decision. There was one time where I had the door slammed in my face and told to F off. So that was fun.
Those are fun.
Yeah. And at least they did yell through the window, get off my property. And my response should have been instinctively, at least you believe in private property. But
hindsight.
Yeah, hindsight being 2020, I just didn't have that ready to go. I will in the future, though. So.
Did you find that most people knew what a libertarian is?
To some respect, the people that have been engaged in politics did. I think, I did follow up with them and say, like, if they started to show a little bit of apprehension, I did follow up with them and say, do you have a question for me that I can answer? If you're not comfortable with that, just allow me to answer a question, or we can have a conversation about what you think libertarianism is. And it really just boiled down to, look, I just want to give you the opportunity or the resources to make the best decisions for yourself. That's really what it comes down to. Just empower the people of this district to form a community that builds each other up. Because like I said at the beginning of this, a lot of the issues that we're facing now were created by the government, and it's going to take a community of people to fix them. They're not going to be fixed through legislation, through more taxation, through pushing people off into different areas where they think they're going to thrive, because we've seen how that happens. And the government sends people into cities and deprives them of resources. So it's going to take communities to stand up, and every community has a different demographic, right? So it's going to look different across the state. It's not going to look exactly the same. Not everything is going to work in my district that works up in Bemidji, or works, down in Mankato or Albert Lee, or, Crookston, so it's just, things are different. We need people on the ground that understand the demographic, understand the intricacies of how each community works, and that are going to be able to say, look, we can't force people to do anything. We need to create an environment where people choose to do the right thing.
Yeah. So when the petitioning started and I reached out to you about this podcast, your response was cautious, not coming on. And because we've done petitioning in the past, and didn't overcome the petitioning numbers we needed.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things that, the state puts these rules in place to keep people like us that are going to throw a wrench in the plans off the ballot completely. They give us hurdles they don't give themselves, that we have to overcome, that they don't have to. And we don't always overcome those hurdles. That's why we didn't have a governor candidate last election cycle, because we just did not get the numbers. When I texted you about coming onto the podcast, and you were like, well, we'll see how it goes. And I was like, he's remembering like the governor race and the petitioning and all that kind of stuff. And that didn't go well.
Yeah. I think, the Sunday night was, like I said, it was really an emotional night when I realized that we had blown past the signature threshold, and people were coming and going out of the house, and I really didn't have time to kind of reconcile with it. And it was Pat. Like, Pat was the last one to leave because she was kind of like the gatekeeper for everybody, kicking people out of the house and just said, go. And here's my puppy here. And I finally had a chance to sit back and go, damn, that happened. That just happened. And it was so emotional, and I think I wept for a little bit. Now, I can say that.
Well, it had to have been a relief, this massive weight that was.
It was. And then you go through these emotions of like, am I doing the right thing? There's moments of doubt. There's moments of, gratitude and just appreciation for everybody coming out and really kind of collaborating on this single mission of getting on the ballot. And then it's like, well, now it's just the beginning, right? So now we've just begun. We've got to get to how do we start to campaign? And I've got to put a campaign team together. And man, I haven't had a chance to rest. So it's been a whirlwind, and it's been great. And I'm looking forward to the next 2.5 months of just pounding the pavement. What's funny is you brought up the just the petition gathering and, everything we went through last legislative session with the, SF 1827 and, just having the press conferences and the testifying in front of the elections committees. And Jim Carlson lives down the street from me. So I went and knocked his door, and Matt Kowalski's got great video and audio. I think I had a 33-minute conversation with him. He was, I don't know what he was doing. He was probably trying to stall me out or something like that. But if I just stall him, he can't get signatures. And I reminded him that I've got like 20 people out collecting signatures right now. So it's not going to work, buddy. He was telling me about how his dad named all these streets because the neighborhood I lived in, his family owned all this land, right? So he's like, yeah, across this street here, my parents named it after this, and this street here is all constellations, and this is all flowers, and your street's named after my parents went to a holiday in Sweden, and they liked the name, and so they named your street. Cool, man. What we disagree on is the legislation that you put forward to raise the threshold to 10%. And he was like, I didn't like that either. And I'm like, well, you're the chair of the committee, and it was your bill. So I don't know why you put it forward if you didn't like it. So
because they're just doing what their people tell them to.
Exactly. But that's the thing. Is anybody who enters this race, except for there's one guy, I will say this, and I'm just trying to be honest here. There's one guy who seems like a nice guy. I want to get to know him better. He's a DFL candidate. I don't know where he stands on political issues, so I'm just reserving my right to get to know him as a person before I judge him on his policies. But he seems like a nice guy. I'd love to run a race against him. And if he is the default winner, then I'm hoping we can work together, going forward on some different issues. And at least develop a rapport with him that I can reach out to him. Sorry, my dog is, come here.
Well, I just had a child try to run through my screen, so the dog is fine.
There he is.
He's pawing at me.
Charley, you mentioned the importance of community, and you were mentioning how important school choice is to you. I'm assuming that you've been engaged in your own community and that you might already have an idea of what your neighbors think about school choice. Could you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. In talking with my neighbors, a lot of them have troubles letting go of completely public school, right? So I think there's apprehension there. I think people are going to be maybe closed off to hearing about the alternatives. I've had conversations with people that say, well, what if people only raise their kids with these antisocial and completely religious views? And I said, what's wrong with that? Right?
They need to get out of the cities more.
Yeah.
I realize that a lot of Minnesota.
That's my point. So
that.
I had this, this guy came at me and basically said, I'm scared if the kids are not raised in a social environment or anything like that, or they're raised in a racist household. And I was like, how often do you think that happens? Like, do you honestly think that parents are raising their kids to be bad people? Like, the 99% of parents out there want to do what's best for their kids, right? I'm leaving a little bit of wiggle room, but I'm going to say 99.9% want to do what's best for their kids. When you ask them, like, do you want to do the best thing for your children? Resoundingly, the answer is going to be yes.
Yep.
Right? What that means to people is different, right? Everybody has their own perspectives. Everybody has their own history. Everybody has their whatever has happened in their lives to give them the perspective that they currently have, right? And we all see different bits of information. I think that's one of the biggest things right now is the information cycle, that people are being misled on what the actual policies are. And they're not digging into the nuts and bolts of what's being proposed. So I think there's just a bunch of misconceptions and preconceived notions of how things interact or how things progress, and that needs to change. And so if we can have a conversation about what are your fears of things happening, and then just help them realize that if they don't allow parents to make the best choice for their children, they're forcing children into one lane that might go against their parents' wishes. So they're creating the diversity in a family that they don't even know. They're not even part of, right? So how do you reconcile that? And one of the biggest things that I brought up is I said, this guy went through the whole racist rant and religious rant and antisocial rant. And, I said, well, okay, let's think about this. How do you feel about the Amish community raising their children in a strictly social, strictly religious environment? Do you think that those people are bad? And he couldn't answer me. He did, well, that's a one-off. And I said, no, hold on. That's typical. That's what the typical homeschooler focuses on.
And up here in the northern half of the state, like, we have a significant amount of Amish communities, Mennonite communities.
Absolutely.
There's Orthodox Russians. There's there's other Hutterites. There's a whole bunch. Like, so the Amish is just a small portion of that closed off community that focuses heavily on religion. They keep their kids at home. They don't send their kids out to public school. We probably don't even know the population of them because they have nothing to do. They don't turn in those numbers.
And we don't need to. That's the beauty of it, right? We don't have to. We don't have to know. They're doing what they do.
Yep. And they're not getting in trouble. Like, there's no big major news things, like.
Yep. And we can respect that, right? So that's the beauty of being a libertarian. It's like, hey, I can respect your decision to raise your kids how you see fit, in a household that you provide for them, in a community that you feel safe in, right? And I can't get back to this slippery slope of, if we allow this, it's going to be, crazy from the right perspective. Like, I can't believe in that. I've got to believe that people are, I'm optimistic with people. I give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to be judgmental. I think people make the best decisions for themselves. And I think they make the best decisions for their kids because they're the ones that are most intimate with them.
That's actually what our podcast last week was about.
Okay.
We were talking about homeschooling and various approaches to homeschooling and that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Bemidji School District, which is where I'm at. I'm in Bemidji. When the COVID lockdowns happened and the schools all closed, 10% of students never went back to the schools. So 10% of students are either, their parents were forced into homeschooling and realized, hey, I was always thinking about this as an option and now I have to do it. And I realize it's not as, like that kind of that initial hurdle is intimidating. But once they were put in the position where there was no other option, they realized, oh, I can do this. And
you're like, how am I going to find the time? How am I going to find the resources? Am I going to,
or, like they were thought it would be more involved than it actually is. And it's not hard to just homeschooling in our day and age is so easy.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to that podcast because that's fascinating.
I get a kick out of people who say they want to get their kids into the public school earlier and earlier in order to learn social skills. Then I'm thinking, why do you want your child to learn manners from a bunch of other 5-year-olds?
Right.
Yeah. They're still trying to like use utensils, at lunch. And I mean, maybe, those things will come with time, but, not at 4 or 5 years old. I don't even put a lot of effort into school. And this is totally off subject, like, because we homeschool. So I don't even put a lot of effort until they're at least 10, 11 years old, until we have mastered reading. And then school can take off.
Right. Then you can get into more advanced topics and progress.
But you have to be able to read to be able to do that.
Well, you mean you have to learn the fundamentals?
Yeah, I mean,
before you can go into advanced topics?
I know.
I think this is the crazy thing, and I'm going to bring this back to government right now, and the way just everything is being run. We're so divided on nuanced issues that really have very little impact on the daily lives of the general population.
Mm-hmm.
That's the divisiveness in politics. And we're losing focus on the fundamentals of government, right? We're losing focus on what government means. One of the potential opponents today, I read her website, and she says, I want to bring it up, but I don't want to interrupt anything. But it was something along the lines of, using government to, progress the welfare of the family and the community and all this stuff. And I was like, that's exactly the opposite of what government should be doing.
Yeah, but it's not working.
It's not. And
I'm not seeing any progression.
Right. The reason this seat is open is because that philosophy directly conflicts with what reality is, right? I'm not sure if you're aware of the reason the seat. I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast, but I'm going to say it because I'm just referring to some articles that have already been published about what led up to this, and I'm sure there is different perspectives and a longer story as to what's behind it, but essentially my state legislator resigned her seat. She is currently the CEO of Planned Parenthood for Minnesota Northwest. I can't remember, like maybe this region. And back in June, the Minnesota Reformer published an article that maybe it's like the clerical union, or I'll have to look at the name of the union, but it's a union that a lot of the employees were looking to join for Planned Parenthood. And she essentially came out and was trying to talk to them about not joining the union, right? So not unionizing, which is, from my understanding, a direct conflict with their philosophy on the left, right? Unions are great. Unions have built this country, all this, kind of, God, I hesitate to say Marxist, but that really is where it generated. And so you have this conflict of interest between her position as a CEO of a nonprofit and the unionization of a workforce. And that's where philosophy meets reality, and you have this collision. And I'm sure she had problems reconciling with it, because I'm sure there's this, overwhelming feeling of, I've got to support the unions, but I've got to protect the business as well. So how do you reconcile that and sit as a representative in the state legislature and vote on budgetary items as the CEO of a company that gets a lot of funding through subsidies, public subsidies? So a lot of things going on there. I'm sure she had trouble reconciling with it. I don't know the intricacies, the details. This is all my vision of it, right? So I want to put a disclaimer out there. I'm not trying to impugn anybody or speculate as to what's going on. This is just my interpretation.
Yeah, but I mean, she resigned for a reason. So
for a reason, and she has her reason. She hasn't made it public, so I want to respect that. She was our representative since 2018, so people must have liked her. I will say that. But I disagree with a lot of the legislation that's been passed since that time. I disagree with I think she was pretty intricate in the family leave bills that were released over the last legislative session. When you look at it, I think 6 months of leave is just drastic for a business to maintain a position when somebody takes family leave of that, that duration. It's tough. It's tough. And the government isn't making it any easier for businesses to succeed and be successful and remain solvent. The drastic increase in printing of money, us being libertarians, that's very core to our principles, and the Fed, all that. So it's like you start to see these things come around, and, we've been shouting it for years, for decades, that these things are going to come to a head. And I fear that there's going to be a reckoning, and 2024 is probably going to be a pivotal event next November. I'm hoping to get in this seat to kind of at least bring some sanity to where we're at as a state and provide some sort of an off-ramp to mainstream politics right now. There's got to be, we're trying to create a community of people where people can rely on their neighbors, where people are comfortable associating with their neighbors, even if they disagree politically. So we're trying to create that community where, I can walk down the street, and this is very real circumstances. I walk down the street to my neighbor because I walk my dog, and his dog will come out, and they'll greet each other, and we'll have time, and we've talked about politics. And he's a very, very devout Marxist, but we can have these conversations, and we can talk about things without getting into an argument. And I appreciate his perspective, and he appreciates mine, and we can remain civil and disagree where we disagree and agree where we agree, right?
Yep.
And that's the type of community that I'd like to see moving forward. And it's not going to happen overnight, right? It can't happen overnight. People are going to go through some struggles over the next decade. It's not going to be pretty.
No, every time I go grocery shopping, it's a lesson I get to pass on to my kids, because it's not like, for us, it's not like our grocery budget has expanded.
Right.
We just can buy less with it because that's directly the policies by the printing of money, like you said, and making the costs increase. which the costs have increased significantly, at least grocery wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, everybody's feeling it. Everybody's feeling it. Nobody feels like they have a choice in this matter.
Yeah.
Right. But we absolutely do. We have the ability to affect the government as a population, as a citizenry here in Minnesota. There has to be some sort of reconciliation between the two sides that are carrying on with these juvenile antics that we just can't put up with. The decorum that is going on in the state legislature needs to be nipped at the bud. I get frustrated when I think about it, and I just, I'm passionate about this. I want to affect policy in the best way that I can, but I'm very realistic about what can happen over the next 2.5 months. What is most likely to happen over the next 2.5 months. But I at least want to get something out of this. Show that there is some what's happening. Show that there is some common sense. People might not agree with common sense being, an more Austrian economics theory versus the Keynesian model, because that's doing well for us right now. But it's just, you've got to think about things in a different manner. And unfortunately, the way people are reacting right now is that reaction, right? So we want to be proactive and start to think about what the future holds instead of right now. How can I be happy right now?
Well, and if something doesn't happen, like on our end, if we don't help kind of focus the energy and take it in a direction that we want it to, we know just by looking at human history that this will come to a head at some point, at some time. And if it doesn't happen while we're adults, we're just passing the problems on down to our kids. And who's
100%.
to say that it wouldn't happen during their time? So that's the way I look at it. Like I see the problems, I recognize them, I know how big these are, and like
Right.
feeling like the small person and trying to take on these monumental problems. But at the same time, like I don't want my kids to have the responsibility of addressing it because I didn't have the ability or the courage to in my time.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you, Charlie, touching on that exact point, you talk about your frustrations and those kinds of things. So going into this campaign, what gives you hope?
One of the biggest things that gives me hope is during this petitioning, I primarily worked around my house, my home, my community, like my neighborhood, all that stuff. The feeling that I got from most people in my neighborhood was, we need something else. And that is very powerful when people feel lost right now, right? They feel lost, they feel helpless. And it just so happens that I'm in a position to provide some hope. And I don't take that lightly. It's sad. I'm starting to get emotional again. It's sad when you see people that feel lost, that feel like they don't have a chance. And through whatever the past couple years have been, I find myself in a position where, hopefully I've been at least upfront and honest and led with integrity to a point where I had 24 people jump out at the drop of a dime and hit the communities and really just say, we need this right now. So that gives me hope.
Well, I got to tell you that Chip reached out to me and told me what his idea was. And I was like, ooh, yeah, that is a really good idea. We should what do we got to do this? You know,
and you were Chip messaged me and then you called me.
Yep. And I had this was, I can't remember what day it was, but we had just gotten back from volunteering at the state fair.
Yep.
And while we were kind of wrapping up our time at the state fair, I made a mention to another one of the volunteers there. It was like, so state fair ends tomorrow. The party needs something else to focus on. You know, we can't just all do nothing until the convention in April. Like, there's got to be something else. And then Chip and I was like, oh, this is beautiful. This is perfect. It's perfect. Like the timing, all that kind of stuff. This is just like it was meant to be, right. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a very devout religious guy, but there's there's some things that are happening that I can't explain. So
yep.
It's just, maybe it's timing, maybe it is what it is. Maybe I've just got a role to play in what's going on in the future. I don't know what that is yet, but I'm going to try and make the best decisions that I can.
So going forward, for the people who will be watching this podcast, how can we best support you?
Yeah, we've got 2.5 months of campaigning. December 5th is the election. November 16th, I believe, is probably the DFL primary, since there's only one GOPer that's filed. We're going to try and hit the ground running. Right now, I've been in talks with a couple people. I've got a short list of people to be campaign manager, treasurer. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned over this is that as a candidate, I can't do everything. Even though I try, I can't be involved in everything. And so what's going to have to happen is me put the word out, or a campaign manager putting the word out to get people involved. I really need people within my community involved as well. People that resonate. I've got probably 15 or 20 names to call that are in my neighborhood that have reached out to me, that want to participate in this campaign. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be stressful.
It's going to be more fun when it's over.
Yeah. It's going to be emotional. It's a short time frame, 2.5 months. At this point, I don't have a donation page set up yet. Money's going to come tight. We're not looking at PAC money. We're not looking at big donors. It's really a grassroots effort at this point. It's a special election. Nobody at a national level from any side is really looking at this as we're gonna dump a ton of money into this. So I think if I run the numbers right, if we can get about 1,000 to 1,200 people to come out and vote for us, there's a chance that we could really upend the way our current legislature sits.
Do you have current data that indicates how many typical voters turn out for a special election?
Yeah, but I haven't combed it. I haven't really looked at it intricately. So I haven't broken it out to precincts or anything like that, because I do want to do that. But I've got general election data. Nothing to speak to special election, but I can imagine special election is drastically less. I think there's some people that have given me numbers about actually like almost half of a general election votes in the special election. So if we look at the numbers and we say maybe 14,000 people voted in the general election in my area, if we're looking at 7,000, if there's a split, we can get 12 to 1,400 people voting for us. It really kind of messes with the math at that point. So that's the goal. Hoping we can hit it.
Well, we are pretty much at our time limit for this evening, but I think that we should, have you back on as this is going. And
yeah. You know me, I'm not like a very out there, in social media person. I try to remain pretty private. But this is going to be something that I can't sit back and just run a paper candidacy. There's too much at stake at this point. There's too many people involved, too many, just too many repercussions if we don't run this as a winnable race.
You never know. I mean, like this could be, the catalyst that we need in the state.
Right.
And we won't know unless we, it just.
Yeah, we can't half-ass this. That's for sure.
Do it completely, do it well, and then just.
Don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing, right?
Yeah.
Go big or go home, right? Yep.
That's right.
So, is it Kuchlenz?
Kuchlenz for mn.com, KUCHLENZ FORMN.com. I do have a Facebook page that's Kuchlenz for MN on Facebook. Reach out to me there. I'll be posting as much news as I can as we progress through this race. I'll try and get on social media. Holy crap. Not my favorite thing, but people have been in my ear about you gotta, get on TikTok, get on Twitter or X, try and run some things on alternative platforms as well, where more disaffected people kind of tend to lurk rather than the mainstream social media platforms. But I think we got to hit this full force and give it hell.
Well, yep. I can make sure that the comms team is on board with you. And so we got Sam on social media and we got James on Substack. So we'll be there for you. If you have any questions, just reach out.
Awesome. That'd be great. You guys would be a great resource. I do want to keep, there does have to be some separation from party to candidate. But absolutely love like the collaboration, at least from a technical standpoint. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And if you want to find anything else about the Libertarian Party as a whole, it's lpmn.org. There's a link on there where you can join the party, place membership, events, that kind of stuff, learn more about our platform, the way we operate, what we stand for, that kind of thing. So I want to thank you, Charley and Kevin, both for being on. And we'll probably be seeing more of both of you on here. And I guess y'all have a good evening.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Congratulations, Charley.
Hey, thanks, Kevin.